Hi, everyone, and welcome to a Wordstream webinar, How to Compete in Google and Facebook, 8 Actions to Take This Month. My name's Amanda, and I'm a marketing manager here at Wordstream, the girl behind some of the creative and the webinar content here, and so I'm excited to have you join us. Just to start out with some logistics, a little bit about Wordstream. A lot of you may have found us from our amazing content. We have an incredible blog. We have tons of free tools that you can use to help you audit your current Google and Facebook account performance. And there's also a software that Wordstream has that allows you to manage it, Google, Bing, and Facebook all from one place. Do it by yourself or do it with the help of some of our amazing experts here at Wordstream that can service and help you out with strategy. Either option is great. And another option we have, which is pretty cool, is this new partnership with Local IQ. So, this is a cool offer for anyone who doesn't feel like they have the headcount or the time or the patience to really master Google and Facebook themselves, because we understand that it is not easy. It's really hard to do. So let us be your partner. Look up some of our offerings on wordstream.com, see how we could help you really take Google or Facebook marketing off your plate completely and just help your business grow in that way. Just wanted to let everyone know, because that's a bit of a new offer that Wordstream has these days. And then I also just wanted to mention that we are being recorded today, and we will be sure to get the recording and the slide deck to everyone after the fact. So don't worry if you can't stay the whole time, or if you have colleagues that would like to see it, we will be sending out all those assets afterwards. And last but not least, also please submit your questions. We are always looking for this to be engaging for you and exciting, and we want to make sure that we're getting all of your questions answered throughout. So we'll be sure to do that during the Q&A at the end. Alrighty, so let's jump into the content, and I'm actually going to kick us off today, which is new for me, so that's exciting, with just some facts and figures to kind of set the landscape here and why you might be on a webinar about how to compete in Google Ads. So as we all know, the Google and Facebook landscape is always changing, and in 2020 it still remains the most those two platforms remain the most popular for advertising. Google, actually, last year around this time, spending on search had grown 15% year over year since Q2. And in 2020, Google search spend is still growing, but has dropped slightly since Q2 2019. After seeing an 11% growth in Q1 this year, spending on Google search grew by about 9%. Likely due to Corona and everything going on in the industry, which makes sense, but still, we're still growing. And you can see that, CPC dropped 21%, clicks increased 38%, so we're still seeing a lot of success on this platform. Alrighty. And spending on Google search ads on desktop has also grown 6% year over year since 2019. While, and it grew even more this year, which is incredible. Even given everything going on, we're still seeing a 7% growth. So to give you an idea of how much that represents, 7% growth year over year represents $9.3 billion. But that's not it. Google search ad spending has grown 16% year over year, Q2 2020. And now to move on to Facebook, our other platform that we'll be talking about today. Facebook ad impressions were up 25% in Q2 this year. And we've seen incredible traffic growth. So if you're not on Facebook yet, you'll definitely want to get on it. Instagram ad spend grew 30% year over year, which is crazy to think about. That's massive, massive growth. And impressions are up 46%, with the cost per impression going down. So that's just efficiencies. And again, another reason why advertising on Facebook and Instagram could be beneficial for your business. And finally, our last stat today, Instagram impressions rose 46% year over year. So again, Facebook, Instagram, the traffic is crazy. So while Google is still a powerhouse for our online advertising, Facebook and Instagram are right there with it. And because of that, competition is inevitable. And that's why we're here today. You guys want to learn the tips and tricks to beat the competition and to outdo your competitors on Google and Facebook. And that's why we have our experts, Chris and Emily, here today to dive into those top 8 tips that'll help you do just that. So give us a moment here while we transition into those account tips.
And don't fear, this webinar is going to give you some great tips. Emily and I have really worked to figure out what's going to be the most actionable, best items that we can give you in this webinar, and we are eager to get started. So with that all being said, let's start out with Google, the 800-pound gorilla in the marketplace. Our first tip, our first action, is a little straightforward, something that you probably hear from the basic level of our blogs and other content, all the way through account managers if you're a client of ours, and that's just add negative keywords. We often see advertisers and agencies alike failing to routinely add new negative keywords to their accounts, and if you fail to add new negative keywords, you're going to have a bad time. Why will you have a bad time, you might ask? Well, to put it simply, the numbers don't lie. We've talked about growth a lot within spend and impressions, but now we're also just going to look at some other metrics. Notably, some stats taken from a blog post earlier this year by our content team really highlight this issue. Every year, the volume of Google searches grows by roughly 10%, and between 16 to 20% of the searches in total to Google are brand new, meaning they've never been searched before in that exact word order or phrasing, and Google and us as advertisers have never seen them before. These statistics are both important and scary for us as marketers. Not only is search volume naturally growing over time, but upwards of 20% of these searches, like we saw, are brand new. So if we're not constantly adding new negative keywords, we're falling behind our competition and costing ourselves a lot of valuable marketing dollars, especially if you have small budgets to work with compared to your competition, or if you're in an expensive industry cost per click wise. So we want to make sure we're minimizing that scary wasted spend, and the best way to do that is to just always add negative keywords. You want to take action to help improve your performance, stay ahead of the competition, and minimize wasted spend. And to do that, we really recommend keeping yourself to a routine, adding negative keywords at least once a week, whether or not you have to set a calendar reminder, put it down on your to-do list, whatever it might be. At least once a week, go through your account and add these negative keywords, whether it's through the native Google UI or even a third-party tool here, like our very own Wordstream's Advisor software. Again, it's just crucially important that you add these negatives, because over time, as our software will tell you and our customers will know, these negative keywords spend a lot of money and add up to a lot of wasted spend. Our second tip continues the keyword theme from our first tip, although this time we're going to look at the actual keywords, not just the negative keywords. And what I mean by that is understanding the keyword match types. So less on the content of the keyword itself, but more how the match types work and what you should be doing as an advertiser, as an agency, to maximize your potential within the budget and the market space. First and foremost, pick the match type that works best for your budget and strategy. With 4 main match types being broad, modified, broad, phrase, and exact out there, it's ever-growingly important to make sure you're leveraging the proper match type. What you don't want to have happen is wasted spend because you picked a broad match type that's matching to anything and everything, whereas exact match might only match to 1 or 2 things and you end up not spending a lot. Well, what happens if I don't? You're probably throwing money away. You might be asking yourself, what happens if I don't consider my PPC budget and goals? And as some of these examples have highlighted, you're literally just throwing that money in the garbage can. If you're a small advertiser with, say, a $20 a day budget and you add keywords on exact match, that's great, because you have exactly what that person's searching for, and chances are with that small budget, you're going to spend that full budget daily. But if you have that same $20 budget and put into broad match types, chances are you're going to match to things you don't want to. You're going to end up wasting all that money and likely not even see a conversion. Different match types have different levels of quality and volumes associated with them, which is why we want to make sure we pick the right one. As this example shows, broad match is going to have the largest reach, but the lowest relevancy or the lowest quality, and exact match is going to be the inverse of that. It's going to have the smallest reach, but the highest relevancy. So again, really need to drive home the point of choosing the proper match type for your budget and leveraging them as best you can. An example here kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about. So on broad match, formal shoes can match to anything remotely related to shoes. Formal footwear, evening footwear, men's dress wingtips. It can also match to men's sneakers, women's sneakers, anything that Google thinks is similar to shoes. So to counteract that, we might go to modified broad, where we say, add that plus sign that you see in the example, and now we're telling Google this word has to be in the search term. So if I have modified broad for formal shoes, that means I'm not going to match to men's sneakers. It means I'm only going to match to searches with formal shoes or a misspelling of formal shoes. Phrase match also allows us to capture formal shoes, but in a slightly different manner, where formal shoes has to be in the search exactly in that order, but it can have words or phrases before and after that. And then exact match has to be exactly what we're offering, formal shoes, nothing else. Understanding the differences in how these match types perform and function is a crucial step we find many advertisers skipping during campaign setup. When considering which match type to leverage, you really have to consider the following factors of campaign objective, aka what your goal is, what you want to accomplish with this campaign, your daily budget, and your expected average cost per click. And that third one, your expected average cost per click, is where we see a lot of people fail because they just skip that step. And as an example, in legal or law, your average cost per click might be anywhere from $50 to $100 for non-branded. Well, if I set a campaign up with a $200 a day budget and I don't take that into account, I might only end up with 1 or 2 clicks a day, and there's almost no way I'm going to get a conversion off that. So again, consider these factors when setting up your campaigns and picking your match types.
All right, now it's my turn. We're going to talk a little bit about audience overlaying in Google. So this is really important for any advertiser that's looking to go after a specific demographic or a particular market segment. So essentially this should apply to most everybody that's on this webinar today. If you're advertising for something like employment, credit, or housing, audiences won't be as great a fit for your account, but for most advertisers, there's a useful way to direct your ad spend towards the markets that you know are more likely to do business with you and convert on your website. For search, these are kind of the main options that we're looking at. You can layer in audiences based on users' web behavior, their search patterns, which would be these top 2, where you have the affinity, custom affinity, and in-market audiences. But for search, we also have the ability to layer in your website visitors as an audience, so that if someone searches for your business again, you can bid up on those people to ensure you get the top position on the search engine results page and bring those people back into your website. There are 2 ways to overlay an audience into your search campaigns, and they take these 2 modes. You have observation mode and targeting mode. In observation mode, it's kind of like your data collection mode. So you can layer this audience in, collect data on it, and use it to later make decisions in your account. And if someone in the audience makes a search that triggers your ad, the data will populate there. So you can see how many impressions, clicks, and conversions are associated with it without placing any aggressive bid adjustments there. But if you choose to, and you have your audience in observation mode, you can bid up on folks that are in your audience. And I'll show you guys an example in a moment. In targeting mode, this is a much more restrictive audience mode where you're telling Google to only show your ads to someone if they are in that audience. It's very useful for very specific objectives or really niche products and services where you don't want anybody who falls outside of that criteria to see your ads. But in targeting mode, you can still adjust how much more or less you're willing to pay for a click from that audience if you have multiple in each one and you want to kind of tier the priorities. So in this example, I'm setting up an audience. I'm a cosmetics brand that's looking to target beauty enthusiasts, and I want to target them a little bit more aggressively for search because I know that they're more likely to buy from me. So I'm running a campaign where I'm trying to sell my bronzer product. And I want to run a test to see if somebody who's interested in beauty services and beauty products will perform better compared to the rest of people searching for bronzers. So in this case, I've chosen observation mode for my bronzer campaign. I always recommend putting the audiences in observation mode beforehand so that you can monitor performance, identify some trends, collect a little bit of data if you're unsure of how much you want to bid up or down on this audience. And if I wanted to restrict my campaign to show only ads to searchers who are beauty enthusiasts, in that case, I would select targeting. Now my audience is set up. I'm ready to start layering it into my search campaign. And in this case, I've decided to bid up 20% on people who are in market for beauty products and services. The next Google action is going to be all around the ads themselves. So ad refreshes and optimizations that you can make in your account today to stay more competitive. If you look at the ads on this screen, this is my example dog toy company. This section is for you if your ads look anything like this. Both of these ads are using legacy ad formats. So the single headline and the two headlines are both outdated ad formats in Google. We actually will see that they'll struggle to compete with more modern ads that my competitors might be running. The newest ad format in Google actually allows us to put 3 headlines and 2 descriptions, and Google's been a little bit more generous with the character limit on our descriptions. We actually get 10 more characters. This is huge to take advantage of. Take advantage of any added text space that Google is going to give you because you can add more language into your ads to improve the relevancy to your keywords, which in turn will lift those quality scores. This is how I feel when I see legacy text ads, truly. Google is giving you all of this free additional ad space. How could you not be taking advantage of that opportunity? Now let's take a look at what these updated text ads look like. This is an example of text ads that are using the most modern ad formats available. So you can see that I have 3 headlines, 2 descriptions, taking all of that available ad space down to the character, and I've added site links, which also take advantage of that free copy space. I feel a whole lot better about the way these ads look. They're much more competitive. They take up more page real estate on the search engine results page. And again, they're more likely to lift my quality score because I'm able to add more relevant information. If I need to stay competitive, this is a great way to do so. So a couple of key points to remember in your ad refresh. When you go in and you're starting to think of new copy, you want to try to test at least 3 ads in your ad group to ensure that Google has enough to rotate through to the users that are searching for your business. I can't tell you how many times I've seen ad groups that contain copy and pasted ads where the headlines and descriptions don't actually change from ad to ad. You need to make sure you're switching things up, give some variability. And lastly, be sure to always reassess your ad copy. Don't wait too long before going in and actually optimizing your existing ad groups. Look at your best performing ad and continue testing variations on it. Pause the ones that have a lower click-through rate. This is an ongoing effort. And like Chris had mentioned earlier, search behavior is changing. Searches are always going to be brand new to Google, and you want to make sure that you stay on the cutting edge of that changing search behavior. Your competitor is going to be creative, and you need to make sure to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to your brand messaging and the way that you message your value propositions. Now we're going to move into 4 actions that you can take in Facebook this month. First action is going to be around designing your ads to your core platform. So what I mean by that is the core platforms that the Facebook ads network actually offers. Because Facebook ads are so much more than just simple newsfeed ads. Facebook is actually comprised of Facebook itself, Instagram, the Messenger, and the Audience Network, which is a greater network of websites that show Facebook ads within them. And each platform has its own best practices for formatting the ads. And believe it or not, simple tweaks to the copy and your call to action can really make or break the ad experience for your potential customers. So it's important to think about where your user is going to see this ad. This is an example of a not so great ad for Facebook mobile. So you can see this is my example dog toy company again. And here I've done a pretty poor job of telling my audience what to focus on because I know that they're going to be on a mobile device. I want this ad to really spoon feed them what action I want them to take next. So for starters, my primary text at the top there is actually too long and is running over the available space. My user is pretty unlikely to click the See More button when there's so many distractions already. I'm also using the headline space that you can see below as a call to action, which is redundant with my Shop Now button. It's kind of competing for my user's attention. Not to mention that my description below the headline is also running over the available space. It's really information overload. I'm giving my user way too much to focus on. I need to streamline this ad. Let's see what a couple of improvements can do. First off, slight changes to this ad are already giving it a more polished and professional look. The text at the top of the ad is no longer truncated, meaning that anyone who sees the ad is going to see all of it without having to click See More. This is going to be optimized for the mobile experience first and the desktop experience as well. Plus, my Shop Now button is my main call to action with far fewer distractions, and I'm using that headline space much more appropriately. The next Facebook action that we want you to take is testing different ad types in the same ad set. I can't tell you how many times I've audited a Facebook account, and when I look into an ad set, I notice that a lot of advertisers make the mistake of only testing one format in their ad set. It's always a best practice to test different images, different variations of your ad copy to see what resonates best with your audience. But this type of ad can make or break the experience too. You don't have to set up your ad sets in this way. There are a lot of ways to leverage Facebook's automation to dynamically insert your images, dynamically insert your copy, and instead make full use of that ad group by testing different formats. And by formats, we mean this. This is an example ad set for my dog toy company. In this example, I'm testing 3 different ads. One is a series of videos. The next is that image ad that we looked at before. And the third is taking my products themselves and putting them into a carousel ad without showing them in context. Now, this is really going to allow me to see which images will perform best and what ad type is going to resonate best and get somebody to actually come and make a purchase on my website. So what I'm really trying to test here is, do images with dogs in them perform better, or do the product images alone perform better? Lastly, really important to note that I did allude to earlier, Facebook has a dynamic creative as an option in your ads. So there's no need to go and copy and paste your ads only for the sake of changing your headline text or changing out the images. You can actually add variations of the images and the copy into one single ad, and Facebook will dynamically display that combination, and it will best suit that particular person that's sitting in your audience, and it will be in line with your campaign objectives. So there's no need to duplicate your efforts, duplicate ads for the sake of duplicating them. Let's make meaningful changes here.
Thank you for that, Emily. Some awesome advice right there. This is Chris again. I'm going to take you back into the last 2 Facebook actions we have. First and foremost, what I want to address is switching to campaign level budgets. If you're a fan of Wordstream or follow our content, you know we've been pushing this since it was announced earlier this year, but we still find so many advertisers aren't leveraging these new budgets. In most cases, the daily budget for any given ad set is way too low, and the ad itself then won't get enough historical data for Facebook algorithms to really optimize who it's going to show to and allow the algorithms to identify the person that's most likely to convert, so we can improve our performance, get more for our budget, and again, compete in the Facebook ads environment. What we want to have happen is really leveraging these campaign level budgets here, where we can say, hey, I don't want to have a single budget by ad set. I want just one total budget that you can use to optimize however you want. Get me that info, get me that historical data that I, as the advertiser, can then use to make my own educated, informed decisions rather than either guessing or just making poor decisions because I didn't have enough data and I didn't get enough good data. Once an ad set has a good bulk amount of data behind it, the platform will really start to optimize the audience that it's serving to, in that it will start showing to an audience that's more likely to convert. Switching to these campaign level budgets allows the platform to optimize the ad set in the most efficient manner, and again, gives us good data to work with so we can make these educated, informed decisions to really stretch our marketing budget as best we can and compete in a world where you're going up potentially against the Amazons, the Googles, the Facebooks, the eBays of ads who have hundreds of thousands of dollars a month that they can spend. The last Facebook action is a little more in depth than the one I just covered, but definitely something we want to make sure we include here because it is something we see happen very frequently. And what I mean by that is we see almost every advertiser that comes to us not align their bid strategy with their campaign's objective or the campaign goal, meaning what is this campaign supposed to do? What is the measure of success that I will look at this campaign under a microscope with? Unlike Google, which is fairly straightforward and linear with its bidding strategies, Facebook actually breaks out its bidding strategy into two separate pieces called buying type and campaign objective. So first, before we get into the actual bidding strategies, we're going to do a brief overview of those two parts so we can understand the entirety of Facebook's system. First and foremost, you want to ensure your campaign's buying type, which is, again, one of those two pieces that we can set, and campaign objective are properly set. Facebook has numerous campaign objectives that advertisers can choose from, and it can very much feel overwhelming at times if you don't know where to start or what to even look at. And these options will also change depending on the buying type you select. With the auction buying type, like you can see here, having more options than the reach and frequency type. And it's at a base level, although not a one-to-one comparison, I like to phrase it this way. Think of the buying type, auction, as a cost per click or CPC model, whereas the reach and frequency is more of a cost per thousand impression or cost per mil CPM model. Again, not a one-to-one comparison to how Google does bids, but fairly close and a very simplistic way to look at it and understand it. But what does this mean? Well, at a high level, you want to make sure your campaign objective matches your campaign goal. For example, select the auction buying type and catalog sales campaign objective if you're an e-commerce company, like Emily's previous example, selling products through Facebook. Or selecting the auction buying type and campaign objective that makes sense for you. So if you're lead gen, we might want to look at traffic or conversions instead of catalog purchase sales. Unfortunately, though, once a campaign has been created, you can't go back and edit the buying type or objective. So consider this an action to take for any new campaign you build, as well as check your current campaigns to make sure these are in alignment. If they're not in alignment, you're frequently going to have poor performance, and this might be why you struggle to compete in Facebook or struggle to make the most of your marketing dollars. Now that we've covered the basics, we're going to get to the meat of the matter, the bidding system. Picking the appropriate bid strategy can be intimidating with all the options Facebook has, but ensuring your bid strategy aligns with your campaign's goal is crucial for the success of that campaign and its ability to compete. Excuse me. While we cover the specific details of the 6 currently available bid strategies, we're not going to go into too much detail. So I encourage you to read up on these on your own as well. We're going to give you a bit of a high-level overview with some insight and examples. But again, definitely go out to Facebook's resources or even Wordstream's resources and learn more about these systems. No surprise here that the top 2 most used bidding strategies in Facebook can also be applied to the most types of campaign objectives. As you can see by the screenshot, these are lowest cost and bid cap. Of the 6 currently available bid strategies, lowest cost is the only truly automated one Facebook has, removing all control from the advertiser and giving it to Facebook. This is something that we recommend you use if you're new to Facebook or you're not really sure exactly what data you're going to get or how to optimize just yet. This takes all that control away from you, lets Facebook do its own algorithmic and artificial intelligence-based optimizations, so it's a way to maximize your performance if you're not sure what to do or where to start. Although again, Wordstream has plenty of resources available that you can read up on. Following closely behind the lowest cost and bid cap strategies, cost cap can be applied to most of the campaign objectives in Facebook, though it's not as widely used as the previous 2. And once we get to the 4th bidding option, target cost, we also start to see a switch from more generalized bidding strategies to performance-based bidding strategies that you can set as a campaign objective. For most of you attending this webinar, target cost and the final two strategies we'll cover on the next slide will be the ones you look at if you want to have performance-based campaigns. And what I mean by performance-based is an actionable item or goal, like a purchase, a sign-up, a lead generation, versus something more branding and reach focused, like a video campaign to extend your brand's awareness. The final two bidding strategies are similar to target cost as well, in that they are performance oriented. However, you may have guessed by the names, value optimization and highest value, they almost exclusively apply to e-commerce campaigns where revenue or conversion value is being tracked. And for all you e-com advertisers and agencies out there, I really recommend looking at these two and reading up on them, because they can elevate your performance and elevate your competition within the Facebook ads platform. So now what? Well, now you're a pro. Congratulations, everyone. You fully mastered and are prepared to take action and to compete in Google and Facebook ads. But before we open up to Q&A, we want to just quickly recap the 8 points we covered. Point 1, adding negative keywords in Google. Again, a crucial step, very common to do initially, but most people we find don't keep up with that routine or consistently do it after their first month or two. Understanding your match types, point 2. Again, just making sure that you understand the differences in how these match types are going to perform and how that's going to affect your budget and overall campaign performance. So if you want to go with something that's more likely to convert, but you have a small budget, exact match might be where you look at. Or if you want something that's more branding and reach focused, where you want impressions and potentially website traffic, but don't care as much about a conversion or a website form fill, you might go with broad or modified broad. Audience overlaying, another crucial step to give Google's machine learning and artificial intelligence systems additional insights into your target market, as well as a way to tell Google, as Emily showed, I'll pay X percent, in Emily's case 20% more, if this user falls into the specific audience category and they're searching for my keyword, because I know they're more likely to convert than your average user. So I'll tell Google I'll pay a little bit more for that. And then the last Google optimization, ad refresh and optimizations. This is something, as Emily said, should always be going on in an account. Should never not be testing ads or looking at ad performance, mostly, as we covered, because of the amount of new searches to Google on a monthly and yearly basis. There's going to be new keywords to add, new negatives to add, new searches to put into your ad to make sure it's as relevant as possible. And if you're not keeping up with this, you're going to fall behind. Switching to Facebook, you want to make sure you design the ads to the platform. So not just having an ad that looks nice, but also will perform as best as it can for that specific platform. I won't go back into too much detail. Emily did a great job of covering that. But again, designing ads to that platform is the biggest pitfall I would say I see as an account manager with accounts that we take on. The second Facebook tip is just testing different ad types. In that same vein, you want to make sure you're always testing. Much like Google, use all the formats available, test different languages, test different calls to action, and just make sure the ads look polished and professional. The third tip, campaign level budgets. This is something that's pretty simple and straightforward. It's just a matter of switching from ad sets to campaign, but it can make a world of difference in terms of how Facebook's algorithms optimize your performance, as well as getting in actionable and accurate, to a certain extent, data. And then the last piece, aligning your bid strategy. This is probably the most advanced part of Facebook, definitely more advanced than Google's bidding system. So we recommend, again, reading up on it more outside of what we've told you in this webinar, but aligning the bid strategy is probably the most crucial step to improve performance and sustainable performance in Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris and Emily. That was great. I have so many questions rolling through. It's insane. So let me get to those quickly. But before we do, I just wanted to reference what I talked about in the beginning with this new offer Wordstream has, where you can really, you know, if you were like, oh my gosh, this is so overwhelming, I don't know if I can master this or take this all on myself, partnering with Wordstream right now could be a really great option. So I wanted to put this up on the screen just to let everyone know that we have this totally free marketing consultation. It's a special offer for everyone on the line today. No pressure, but it's just a great way for all those people who ask really industry specific questions. This would be the time to take us up on that. Talk with an expert like Chris or Emily who can really get to know your industry, your metrics, and create a plan that's going to make you more successful and show you how to beat your competition on Google and Facebook. So with that, let's get to some questions. I'm going to bring it back to the basics for our first question here. We actually had a lot of inquiries about what a negative keyword was, and I would love for some of our panelists on the line today, if you could just quickly go over what a negative keyword is, why it's important to have them, and then quickly, can you have too many negative keywords? Is that possible?
Sure, I think I can jump in with this one. Hi, everyone. This is Mike Miliani from Wordstream's Managed Services section. I guess the short answer is to address it on a couple different sides. The short answer is you can't have too many negative keywords insofar as that all of the keywords being added as negatives have a purpose. Obviously, you could add millions of keywords, you could add every possible variation under the sun, but if it's ultimately not helping either move you towards whatever your measurable KPI is, resulting in some sort of cost savings, better focusing the scope of what your search ads or even display ads in some cases are doing, then it's a lot of extra just busy work for the sake of work. A negative keyword is ultimately a keyword, or more broadly speaking, a term that you do not want your search ads to show up for in an auction. So if, for example, you're bidding on the term red Nike running shoes, and you happen to notice very often your ads are being shown and clicked by a lot of people typing in the term, what is the price of red Nike running shoes, or red Nike running shoes arch support, something like that, something you yourself in this hypothetical e-commerce situation you don't sell or service. And you notice this search term is getting a lot of spend, it's getting a lot of clicks, and it's not resulting into any sales or conversions. To simply select and add that keyword as a negative, either at the ad group level or the campaign level, is a way to ensure that you don't show up for that term anymore. And going forward, you save yourself whatever amount of dollars that would have been spent on that term, being present for that term, being exposed to the possibility of being receiving a click for that term. You save that goes back in your pocket, or it gets reallocated to the rest of your campaign. But basically you're saying to Google, I don't want to show up for that term. It's not profitable to buy business anymore. Show me for every other possible term around there.
Awesome, thank you, makes sense. We had another question come through earlier on that was asking, can you or should you have a mod broad and exact match on the same keyword or campaign? How does that layering, can you layer it like that, or should they be separate? A little more insight into that.
Sure. So there's a couple of, to back up first, there's a bigger picture that first has to be explored before addressing that question directly. The first is understanding that both those kinds of keywords, though it may be the same keyword in different match types, can serve two different purposes, usually around the question of intent and readiness, and how bang between the eyes this might be, or how kind of closer to the mark or not at all it might be, can vary depending on your market and industry. But generally speaking, exact match terms tend to be ones that signal a higher level of intent versus broad mod or pure broad terms, which are generally used for more top funnel applications by means of you're allowing your ad to show for more possible, maybe nuanced variations that include these particular words in it. If you're in an industry that's very difficult to pinpoint exactly in search, it might be your only way to make yourself visible. But as a general high-level rule of thumb is that if somebody is searching red Nike running shoes, enter, that is generally somebody that knows what they want. They're not adding a whole bunch of other words or modifiers on either end of that particular idea. They're going, I want this, enter. Or it's a very specific thing they're trying to get at versus maybe something a little bit more long tail, like famous athletes that use red Nike running shoes, for example. You might just be sizing up the market to know, well, who are the other cool people in this space that use these shoes? And oh, do I want to be affiliated with these shoes? Do I want to wear these myself? That can in that small example, that can signal somebody that is perhaps less ready to commit to a particular vendor that sells these sorts of things versus somebody that might be at the stage of they're just price shopping and whoever has the lowest price may win.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you for that. Someone else is wondering, so there's a couple smaller marketing agencies on the line, some nonprofits who definitely have limited budgets that they're working with. Is there, so daily budget can sometimes scare them. They're just wondering, is there a target budget you would start with? Would you go with the daily budget approach? Would you go with a different way to budget? What would you say to them?
I would say daily budget, insofar as you have control. In a case like shared budgets, where they're very, very good if you really, really don't want to go beyond a certain amount of money, and performance, quote unquote, or KPIs, whichever you may be looking at, is perhaps less of a focus. Maybe you're just focused on traffic and impressions, just visibility, whatever it may be. If you're really, really looking for a more hands-off approach to things and the other details and minutiae are of less importance, or for lack of a better word, a shared approach is easier to go with, because none of these things are going to overspend whatever that total amount is. If you are KPI focused and you are focused on identifying where is performance, where is not performance, where has the most potential to scale, can I build maybe a small kind of sales funnel looking shape within my advertising, daily budgets would be the way to go, because again, you have the control to say, we want to prioritize this, give it a little bit more money. We want to deprioritize this, give it a little less money. How much should you go with per day if you're very, very budget conscious? And we're really just sort of looking to have something going and sort of come what may of it. At minimum, I would say $5 a day if we're very, 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 very conservative about what we're doing here. $10, $15, $20, to at least just have some flow of something coming through the door, that hopefully your conversion tracking is set up correctly, all of the nuts and bolts are where they need to be, and you have a KPI you're focusing on, just to make sure, again, something is coming through the door without completely restricting everything off. But anything more than that, obviously would implore you have more strategy, more backing, more know-how as to what you're doing, so that you can feel confident spending $50, $100, $200, $500 a day on a given campaign.
Okay, awesome. And then someone else was just asking, they were given the option to use target CPA, the bid strategy. What can you tell the audience about that, just to inform people more about what it is? Do you suggest it? Do you not? Do you like it? What do you got?
So I have come a long way with target CPA personally. There used to be a time where, to be perfectly honest, I really didn't have a lot of faith in it. It was very temperamental, for lack of a better word. It would have a hard time reaching even very, my ideal CPA plus 10%, it would have a very hard time reaching for that. In the last year or so, there have been substantial improvements made towards target CPA, and slowly but surely as well, many of the other automated bidding strategies. Target CPA these days, I have a lot more faith in for several reasons. One, it is better at achieving, generally, within reason. If you're a big B2B SaaS company, you say, well, I want a $7 CPA and your minimum cost per click is $5. It can do a lot of things, but it's not a magician in that sense. It's good at getting better at, I should say, achieving leads for a particular CPA goal these days, I think personally, more than it ever has been. Is it for everybody? Not always. If you're particularly margins focused, cost per acquisition focused, you have a spreadsheet on your desktop somewhere and you say, we need to have leads at this amount in order for us to be in the green, and you're very focused in that way, I would say target CPA is absolutely for you to consider. If you're somebody else that is more focused on just quality of clicks to some extent, I would also say target CPA is something for you to look at, because by design, Google is discriminating against some clicks versus others. It's automatically adjusting your bid higher to prioritize clicks that are more likely to convert, big quotes, big asterisk next to it, and deprioritizing your bid, pushing your bid down in a way in auctions where the click is most likely not to convert. So there's inherently some baked in quality of Google doing its best to go, I think this click's going to convert, and I think it's going to do it for 25 bucks. So we're going to push you forward for this. And hey, it did it. Great. So we got you a great lead. Or hey, it didn't work out, but you're not getting the same oodles of traffic you would have been before. There's inherently some level of discrimination of clicks going on, which for me, I welcome in more applications now than I ever have. And it's kind of paved the way for a very measured approach, and in some cases, a very natural, logical next step from something like manual or enhanced CPC, where all clicks are treated equally for the same price and come what may.
Awesome. And exactly, for everyone on the line who's like, ooh, should I be using it? Should I not? That's what this marketing consultation could be great for. They can really talk you through different targeting strategies and what would work best for your budget and your industry and things of that nature. So definitely take us up on that if you're feeling like you're not really sure about what you should be bidding there. Let me switch to a couple of Facebook questions before we end the time. There was a question that came through asking, do you make different versions of your ads to show on Instagram versus Messenger versus the Facebook profile? They know they need to test different types of ad creative, but does that also extend to the other networks or places where the ads would show up, I guess?
Could you just repeat that one more time? Just I think I got it, but I want to make sure.
Yeah, sure. So this person was asking if you need to make different versions of your Facebook ads to fit the Messenger, the Instagram, like the different placements that happen when you're creating a Facebook ad. Is there different types you're supposed to make, or can you stick to your standard testing of Facebook ads that will just roll out on any of those places?
So when it comes to creative sizing, like the picture you use, generally Facebook does have some guide parameters. I believe it's less of a pixel minimum maximum pixel requirement as so much as it has to be a certain ratio. I need to double check that personally. But if we're using a picture, for example, the picture will reformat and shape around to accommodate whether it's Facebook mobile, Facebook desktop, Instagram mobile, Instagram story, all these other places. The thing to consider is that in these sort of automatic reformatting and resizes that are going on, certain pieces can be cropped out, certain pieces can be zoomed in on a little bit just to make it all work. So as a rule of thumb, it's important to consider. No, it's all good. It's important to consider kind of what is the focus of the creative that you're going to use. If it's super busy, it's very extensive, and there's things at risk being cut off, I would reconsider your creative so that your subject, your focus is probably as centered as it can be to risk not any cropping or resizing, taking anything off and having it not make sense. Text-wise is a different story because Instagram will truncate text at a different character limit and in a different way than Facebook mobile or Facebook desktop. But the big difference being Facebook and Instagram will truncate text differently. So if you are very of mind to make sure that all of your text doesn't go to the ... and truncate, then there is room absolutely to consider maybe a slightly edited copy to fit that character limit before it truncates on Instagram versus what it might truncate to on Facebook mobile, whether the app or if you're using the browser version on your phone.
Right, and you should be able to preview, when you're setting up your Facebook ads, you should be able to preview all the different placements and what the ad will look like before you set it live. So you can definitely check on that in the process.
Absolutely. And I'm not sure if Chelsea, also, you wanted to add anything to that from your experience on your side?
Yeah, are you guys able to hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I would say based on clients, and this really I think is most applicable to e-com, if you have the ability to reshape your images specifically on Instagram and Facebook stories where it takes up a full screen experience, I know my clients have seen differences in click-through rates. However, like Mike was mentioning, when you're using that full screen image experience on those stories, you do lose some abilities to show as much text. So I typically recommend just using a strong call to action, which I know, like I said, resizing those images would rely on using most often a graphic designer or someone that you're working with to create those images for you. So it might not always be possible, but I would say, especially for those who are in the e-commerce or those who are going after it, the younger demographic, where Instagram is going to be a big play. If you have the ability to change those sizes for the full screen experience, I would definitely recommend testing that out.
Cool. That makes sense to me. I know at Wordstream, we are lucky enough to have some amazing creative designers on staff, and we do get different sizes ourselves. So if that's of any help to anyone. And then why don't we just do one more last question, a Facebook one again. This one is about, so should you be creating different ad sets for each of your target audiences, or should you be testing the same ad sets over all of your audiences? This person was talking about a couple different lookalike audiences that they have on Facebook. Should you be testing the same ad creative, switching it up? What are your best practices for that?
Sure. Let's say I have one ad or two ads that are identical. I have the same picture, same copy, same detail, same landing page, same all of that. But I have two possible audiences that I want to test it against. In a case like that, where I know my creative is identical and the variable that I'm testing is audience performance against that creative, I would make two separate ad sets, one ad set exclusively targeting one audience and running that ad or those ads, second ad set targeting a different audience, same ads, same creative, same all of that. Because that way, at a high glance, when you log in, knowing that your ad copy is the same, it's hitting the same landing page, it's interacting all the same, it's interacting, I should say. You're getting a good read as to how these audiences individually react to this particular given copy or to this particular creative. If you would bundle them all together, let's say you put pet lovers and this lookalike audience of pet lovers or website visitors to your online pet store, let's say, you put them all in the same ad set and ran those ads, you would not have any insight into which audience was driving performance. You would know which ad was driving performance, but you wouldn't know who from what audience was actually doing that. The latter way I mentioned before is a way to get a better read on what audience is actually doing the work, and then from there you can obviously iterate and test different variables against that and go, okay, well, I know my lookalike 2% is doing good against this creative. Let me add a lookalike 2% in a different ad set and see if it still responds the same way. Hey, look at that, it does even better, and you can continue to iterate from there.
Cool. That's awesome. Well, we have about 5 minutes left in the hour, but I'm going to give everyone their 5 minutes back. We had some more industry specific questions coming through and really granular questions, which is awesome. I love how engaged and active you guys all were on the line. If you're feeling like we didn't really answer your question, please take us up on that marketing consultation. Let us know. That way you can have a personalized convo with someone like Mike, like Chelsea, Emily, anyone at Wordstream who's in accounts all the time and really can understand your metrics and help you out, chat with you. So definitely take us up on that. I think it's really beneficial and it'll only help you make some smarter choices and be a better competitor on Google and Facebook. So with that, I will let everyone go and we hope to see you on our next webinar. Bye.